I'm going to be the MC for this evening, and they've given me instructions asking people if you could take your seats, and we're going to start this program. So just to introduce myself, I'm Chris Farrell. I'm Senior Economics Contributor at Marketplace and Minnesota Public Radio. And what a wonderful evening, isn't this? It is a great evening. And I'm really delighted to be here. We have
Welcome. Can I have you just do an audio check? You're not in the room right now.
Educators. I mean, this is
good evening. How's that work?
Perfect. I got you. Perfect,
I'm really
sir.
interested in hearing what
All right. Well, good to see you again. And then I'll give you a thumbs up. My video monitor will go away, and then you're going on screen.
Perfect.
Give like a 5-second after I disappear.
Thank you.
And I want to hear about their solutions for this year's 11th annual Mayor's Challenge Great Debate. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Dakota people on whose land we meet and to thank them for their ongoing care of the land and acknowledge their connections to this community and the richness of their culture. In this spirit and in recognition of the growing diversity of this neighborhood, we want to thank you for coming here and for being a part of the American Swedish Institute's mission to serve as a gathering place for all people. And now it's my honor to introduce Governor Tim Walz, and he's going to kick off our event, and also thank First Lady Gwen Walz for hosting the governor's table. Governor Tim Walz is Minnesota's 41st governor. His career has been defined by public service, from serving our country in the military to serving our students as a high school teacher and football coach to serving our state in Congress. So please join me in welcoming Governor Walz.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm sorry that I'm not joining you in person, but I want to welcome you to the 2023 Mayor's Urban Debate League Challenge. To Mayor Fry and Carter, I hope, I'm sorry I can't be with you, but I know that you will enjoy tonight's festivities because this has become a tradition in Minnesota. To the participants tonight, thank you. Thank you for being so engaged. Thank you for putting your talents forward, and to all of the sponsors who are making this happen, to the Star Tribune, to Augsburg University. I know tonight's debate is going to center around the Great Prosperity Debate. And I'm not with you because I'm with my fellow governors, the governor of New Jersey, Governor Murphy, and the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. And we're putting on a panel with a lot of esteemed experts on the idea of health equity. So I hope everyone, as they watch tonight and they see the talent, this is not a hypothetical debate. This is the training and the real world experience of our best and brightest as they put forward and debate real world solutions like prosperity and inequality in our society. So debate, I know as a high school teacher, and I know the First Lady will be speaking a little bit. I had the privilege of being around this as a teacher and sometimes as a judge. And I left every one of these debates simply amazed and hopeful for the future. You're going to see incredible talent. You're going to see incredible visionary thought, and you're going to see our young people put themselves out in front and do what they do best. So I wish you all a wonderful evening. Again, I'm sorry I can't join you in person, but I know that you are in for a treat tonight. So thank you, Chris, and I wish you all a wonderful evening.
Governor. So before we begin the debate, I would like to thank our sponsors who made this evening possible. Presenting media sponsor, Star Tribune. Advocate sponsor, Lathrop GPM, Taft, Hogan Adams, and Tensa law firm, Zimmerman Reed. Leader sponsor, Dorsey and Whitney, Lockridge Grindle Nowen, Nyland Johnson Lewis, National Association for Urban Debate Leagues, Green Espel. And individual table sponsors, Alex and Emily Thiele, Meg Luger Nikolai and Pete Nikolai, Jessica and Rick Kahn, Jill Skojheim, John and Joan Evans, Mark Radersdorf, George Dow, and Adam Guerin. And we're also grateful to our school district partners, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and North St. Paul, Oakdale, Maplewood Public Schools for their partnership. So please join me in thanking our sponsors and partners. All right, so now let's meet our students. And so the students, if you can make your way up here. Come on up. We're looking forward to this. Give them a round of applause. So, advocating on the affirmative side, that universal basic income is the best way to solve income inequality. Abdi Mohammed is a senior at Edison High School. He enjoys debate because it's really fun. It challenges the way you view the world and gives you the opportunity to think for yourself while building useful skills. Joining Abdi is Adai Trong, a junior at Central High School and a post-secondary enrollment option student at Concordia St. Paul. This will be their second year in debate. They enjoy the process of learning about a debate topic and thinking about it from different angles as they research and compile cases. And on the negative side, arguing that universal basic income is not the right solution is Lily St. Dennis. She is a varsity debater in 12th grade at Highland Park Senior High School. This will be her 7th year competing and her 3rd year coaching middle school debate. She loves the process of teaching students debate and watching them build skills and discover their own voices. And with Lily is Sabrina Tao, a Tartan High School senior entering her 3rd year of debate. Her favorite things about debate is meeting new people and researching new topics that help her learn more about our society. She is also president of her school's Asian Student Alliance. And now for the debate. Now, make sure you pay attention as you will be asked to vote. You're asked to vote for a winner at the end of our program. And it's important to note, and I do want to note, that all speeches have been researched and written by the debaters. Beyond the first speech, their remarks aren't scripted. So, to you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Abdi Hafid Mohammed, and I'm currently a senior at Edison High School. You know, I made sure to remember to bring my water up, but I kind of forgot to. So if no one grabs this, I'm going to steal it later. I'm going to be the first representative of the affirmative, a universal basic income. But before I start my speech, I wanted to say a little joke. I think it's quite funny, so. Why did the banker start a bakery during the recession? Because he needed some dough to rise above income inequality. All right. Today, I'll be arguing for a universal basic income and its means to solve economic inequality. The 3 points I'll be covering in this speech will be that inequality exists now, the labor market sucks, and that a universal basic income can solve. First, inequality exists now, right now. The amount of people below the poverty line in the US is 37.6 million. No one can deny the extreme levels of economic inequality in America. Our country is one that has built its wealth off of our BIPOCs, veterans, and people with disabilities, which disproportionately set them back from reaching opportunities of economic security. Inequality intersects with societal discrimination. I want you to just walk along the Cedar Metro line or stop to notice the amount of homeless people on the corner of exits while you're driving. You start to notice a pattern in their demographic and appearance. This isn't a coincidence. It's because the system that our structure is built on that disproportionately disregards and discards our BIPOCs, veterans, and disabled people. We need to change the structure now. BIPOC child poverty rose from 5.2% to 12.4% after stimulus checks were taken away. We need to change the system now. On to my second point. The labor market sucks. The reason inequality is happening now and the level it is now is because minorities are making less per year than non-minority groups who work more and make less. In 2022, 4 CEOs in the Fortune 500 companies were black, which reflects the state of inequality in our country today in our labor market. A UBI is the idea that people of color and minorities can foster and build their own businesses and become entrepreneurs without having to continuously work every single day just to barely survive. On to my third point, a UBI can be the solution. A UBI is a universal basic income which gives a certain amount of money to everyone every month, no matter the circumstance, no matter who they are. Our plan is to give everyone $1,000 every month and instate a progressive wealth tax to tax the billion-dollar companies and people who make $1 million and over every year. Do you want to know what I do in my free time after school? I'm working. Do you want to know what my brother does? He also works. I know this may be kind of a tough question, but I want you to just guess what my mother does. She also works. Multiple jobs, actually. I can tell you right now what a universal basic income would do for me and my family. It would first and obviously put money in my pocket. And two, it makes so that I don't have to constantly work as much, so that I'm not having to constantly miss spending quality time. I'm a 17-year-old who has 8 high-level classes, is in 2 sports, is in 3 clubs, and is a student rep of Minneapolis Public Schools. And I still work as much as I can to help support my family so that we aren't constantly struggling with rent. I'm not sure how much free time you had in your teenager, but I literally have none. So a universal basic income would give me time to actually spend that time with my family and to cherish my childhood and extend my quality of life instead of spending it working all the hours of my week whilst with having fear of destitution or not being able to pay rent or not being able to I'm going to end my speech there. Thank you.
All right, my name is Sabrina Tao. I go to Tartan High School, and today I'll be questioning Adai Trong. My first question for Adai, do all people in the United States get $1,000 no matter what?
No, only the adults over the age of 18 in the United States will receive the $1,000 per month from the universal basic income.
Does the UBI take into account where people live in the United States?
No, it does not.
How politically popular is the UBI?
The UBI was formally introduced by a former candidate in the 2020s election, Andrew Yang, which has the same model that our plan is based off of, which is $1,000 per month.
Okay, and did he win?
No, he did not.
Yeah, I didn't think so. All right. So where do you plan to get the money for this UBI?
As we mentioned, we will be informing a progressive wealth tax, which will be taxing more and more for those who make over $1 million per year.
Do you guys have an example of a UBI being successful on a federal level?
Yes, as stated in my partner's last speech, the United States was a primary example in our case. And you can take a look into the COVID pandemic where a monthly supply of money was brought to US citizens who were struggling.
And just to be clear, the UBI is money and nothing else?
Yes, money, nothing else.
And that concludes my questions.
Oh my goodness, hello everyone. My name is Lily St. Dennis. I'm a senior at Highland Park Senior High School in St. Paul, and I will be the first negative speaker in this debate. If I will start my speech, no. Is just money enough? The UBI treats every person equally, regardless of their circumstances, but is that enough? Right now, we have people living in the United States that lost their jobs in the past year or are unable to access jobs. Is money but no job security enough? Is this enough to solve the problems in the system? The answer is no. The UBI is not enough. This one-size-fits-all approach, it fails to account for the diverse needs within our society. It's like trying to put a Band-Aid on a broken leg. Instead, we, the negative, propose to put into place the federal job guarantee. It entails the government offering a job to anyone over the age of 18, a federal job, because they're aware that there are individuals in the United States that need work and projects that the US government can give them and jobs that it can give them to better their lives. This would include green projects such as cleaning up Mears Park or Lake Nokomis locally. It also would include city planning and construction of rec centers, schools, hospitals, tons of those kinds of projects. These jobs are able to adapt to people's specific abilities and needs that they have in their own lives. I think we can all agree that income inequality is a very pressing issue right now. Right now, 6.7 million people in the United States are unemployed. An additional 5 million are in jobs that are part-time when they prefer to work full-time, or are being underused for their skills when they want a better job. The unemployment rate has increased by 0.5% in 2023. Now, this may seem like a very small amount, but that's 500,000 people in the past year that lost their job. This has been steadily increasing as people who are skilled to obtain jobs are losing them rapidly. The UBI doesn't solve for these kinds of issues in our economy that are pressing every single day. Poverty and unemployment disproportionately affect Black and Latinx communities. A full employment-oriented job program that provides well-paying positions and labor rights would level the economic playing field. Because the UBI values equality over equity, everyone is given the exact same thing. There's no accounting for location, education needs, healthcare needs, insurance, family problems. Any of those kinds of things are not accounted for with the UBI. A specific example of this is the cost of living in the United States varies vastly depending on where you live. Right now, the average cost of living in the US is $2,500 to $3,500. In Des Moines, Iowa, the cost of living is 15% less than the federal average, but in San Francisco, 45% higher. The federal job guarantee follows either the local rate or the federal rate, depending on which is higher. Federally, this means that full-time working people would be making $1,400 per month, as they make $725 an hour. This doesn't even include the benefits of the job they would have. In Minneapolis, the minimum wage is $15 an hour. This means that workers would be making $2,400 every single month, which is $1,400 more than the UBI gives them, not even including the benefits of having an actual job. The job guarantee isn't just about employment. It's about providing an all-inclusive package of benefits that encompasses healthcare, education, and so much more. Thank you.
I want to eat some food too, so let's get through this quick. All right, anyone? My name is Adai. I've already been introduced. I'm a junior from Central High School, and I will be cross-examining Sabrina, who's a senior at Tartan High School. All right. Judges, start your timer. How does the federal jobs guarantee account for those who currently make more than a federal job minimum wage but are still struggling?
So the federal jobs guarantee is basically for people who are unemployed or want to work more hours. So if they are already employed and they make more than the minimum wage, then the federal job guarantee is just not a program for them.
And how many hours would these people have to work in order to make up for the average cost of living in the US?
So the average cost of living is $2,500. Minimum wage in Minneapolis, for example, is $15, which makes $2,400, but that is definitely more than $1,000 that you're promising.
All right. And so as you said, the jobs that they can get is a park cleaner and a construction workers. Would those workers just make $15 an hour in the Twin Cities?
Yeah, so depending on where they are locally, they'll make that minimum wage, depending if it's minimum wage federally or if they are making the wage locally. It depends on whichever one is higher.
And can these people get fired? If so, in what scenarios?
So the same requirements for a job still applies towards this federal job guarantee. If a person is in danger to themselves or others, we do have benefits such as rehabilitation, mental aid, healthcare to ensure that the person goes through our federal job guarantee benefits to be able to work through the workforce.
And I know you said that the federal jobs guarantee will also include healthcare and education. With working full-time, would they still have enough time to work through education and healthcare?
Yes, definitely.
All right. That's all the questions I have for now. Thank you.
So I don't have a joke for this speech, but I just thought to myself, okay. Judges, start your timer. Like I stated before, inequality exists now, right now. And the root cause is the wealthy congesting and hoarding all the wealth. With the real progressive wealth tax, we scrape the wealth from the top and funnel it down to the bottom to the people who actually need it. There's no reason that 37.6 million people should be in poverty while the rich keep getting richer. We need a plan that structurally changes the system. We are structurally affecting economic inequality from both sides of the spectrum. We're taking it from the top and we're putting it down. On to my next point. The labor market sucks. Just with a show of hands, who here wants to work all of the hours in their week without ever making any amount of income, without ever making it out of poverty? If we only ever give one option for people to live, we can never hope to actually solve economic inequality. Moving on to my third point, a universal basic income could be the solution. I'm sorry, but yes, money is just enough. How can you expect the homeless citizens to just get up and work all the hours of their week without any current immediate income? You need capital to build capital. We're giving people that capital, or dough, they need to rise out of economic inequality. Without a stimulant to produce that, no one can actually achieve to make something for themselves. In their last speech, Lily stated that the cost of living varies in other states, and if it was proven to work in Finland, Canada, Brazil, Namibia, Missouri, and Minneapolis, I'm sure it'll work across the board. Who here wants to tell the homeless citizens along the metro line that they have to get up without any basic needs and just work all the hours of their week? No one wants to do that, right? A universal basic income guarantees the basic needs of everyone in poverty. On to my fourth point, a federal job guarantee is the reason why economic inequality exists now. It's just promoting the current labor market. As stated in the earlier speech, you need to work full-time with the federal job guarantee just to make a smidgen of the amount of what it takes to live in America. Meaning that you have to work all the hours of your week just to barely survive. The US will not be able to find that many jobs. Who here can think of 12 million jobs just off the top of their head? Nobody? Yeah. So it's gonna start to get to a point where they become lower and lower and lower value jobs to the point where it's people doing trivial tasks like digging a hole and refilling the hole. Just a quick question, who here wants to dig a hole and refill a hole every single day? No one wants to do that, right? All right. And as stated in CrossX, they gave examples of positions like school counselors and park cleaners and stated that they would be getting paid $15 an hour, which is underpaying them. The average school counselor makes more than $15 an hour. The average park cleaner makes more than $15 an hour. You're underpaying workers and exploiting them for their labor. And let's be honest, you're not buying a home with $15 an hour. You're not providing for your family with $15 an hour. The federal jobs guarantee is literally poverty with a pretty ribbon. Thank you.
Hope you guys didn't miss me all too much. All right. FDR once said, "True individual freedom cannot exist without economic security and independence. People who are hungry and out of a job are the stuff of which dictatorships are made." Right now, 11 million Americans are out of a job. This will continue to increase unless we actually do something about it. The economic state in the US right now is scarily similar to what it was during the Great Depression. FDR's New Deal is what got America and America's economy out of the Great Depression. Do you know what is pretty damn similar to the New Deal? The federal job guarantee. The New Deal gave people who were out of work government jobs that benefited not only the economy, but also the quality of life. The state, with places such like locally, like the State Fairgrounds, Minnehaha Falls, Superior National Forest, a lot of the buildings on the U of M campus were all developed because of the New Deal during and after the Great Depression. With more people in the workforce, everyone is doing better economically. This was true during the Great Depression, during the Great New Deal, and this is now. It's that saying, we all do better when we're all doing better. It's a perfect saying that encompasses exactly what the federal job guarantee looks like, where when more people are in the workforce, more people are consuming, but more people are also producing, and the overall quality of life in the United States and in Minnesota is greatly improved. The federal job guarantee also avoids recession by continuing the economic cycle. It strengthens the economy by boosting consumer spending and increasing production, creating a positive cycle of economic growth. In the AF speech, they talk about how the UBI has been modeled on a smaller scale in many different places across the world. Fun fact, the United States is the #1 GDP in the world, which means it is 10 times larger than its like people that are just right below it. None of these examples of the UBI working on a smaller scale fully encompasses the actual GDP and the economic power that the US has. So the UBI would fail in this. Do you know what's worked in the past? The federal job guarantee with the US economy as a whole. So this can happen again. No one in the United States is exactly the same. The UBI treats them as such, which is not applicable to our diverse society. There are people out there that are veterans, who are disabled, who are providing for large families, for small families, for only themselves, who have a ton of medical needs, education needs, all this kind of stuff. And the UBI doesn't account for that. The federal job guarantee does. You get access to insurance, healthcare, education. You get access to rehabilitation programs, time off to spend time with your family or take care of a sick loved one. Labor rights, rehabilitation, and so much more that cannot be accessed by just throwing money at the problem. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Adai Trong. I also don't have any jokes, but I'm going to be giving the last affirmative speech for today. All right, 1 second. All right. Judges, start your timer. Passing the affirmative plan means that you're passing the best solution to solve income inequality. What income inequality looks like in the United States is that many people are working so hard just to barely survive. With the federal jobs guaranteed, we are not going to be able to get enough money to survive the cost per living, which is why you should pass the affirmative plan for universal basic income. A universal basic income is here to give people money to work less and spend more time with their family, which is the main issue the affirmative are giving. Since, for me, over the summer, I worked a full-time job. I worked weeks after weeks of morning and night shifts, and that was just barely enough to help me provide money for my family in Vietnam. I did this because I wanted to also support my younger siblings to get a formal education. But since school started with the Bay, I have much, much less time. If a UBI were here, we would have enough time to spend with our families, to spend with our after-school activities, and another issue is that the diversity in the labor market and the economy is right now, it is horrible. And as we stated in our first speech, only 4 out of 500 Fortune 100 companies are CEOs who are also Black. Only 4. If a UBI were to be installed, people who currently are working can get a fallback money to start their own businesses. People of color can start their own businesses. Veterans can start their own businesses. And even if the federal jobs guarantee passes, they are underpaying workers. Construction workers earn a lot more than $15 an hour in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Park cleaners earn a lot more than $15 an hour in St. Paul and the Twin Cities. And that is why you should pass the affirmative plan. That's all.
Hello, I'm finally at the podium alone. No offense, Adai. My name is Sabrina Tao, you know me, and I'll be the last speech of this debate. Judges, whenever you're ready, how about let's start it now. Audience, we agree that inequality is bad, and we want to make it better. The one and only solution is the federal jobs guarantee. We solve better, and here's why. The UBI is a one-size-fits-all solution, meaning that it's not means-tested, and it's not specific to the areas of the United States. Let me put this to scale. A person in California makes their living minimum wage is $4,000 minimum, versus a person living in Iowa, which is half of that. How does the UBI account for all of that? Short answer is they don't. How does the federal job guarantee work through this problem, though? By accounting for all the different areas in the United States and their cost of living. At the end of the day, people make more with the federal job guarantee than they do in the UBI. And who doesn't like more money? Our opponents say that if you agree with the federal job guarantee, then you'll be working all your life, which means that you'll have a depressing lifestyle. Of course, that is not what we want. If you are working a job that you don't like, then you would definitely feel that way. But what the federal job guarantee does is that it helps create jobs that are perfect and ability tailored towards you so that you love what you're doing. Along with that, you are not working with the federal job guarantee program all your life. That's not our goal. Our goal is to create life skills for you to use and bring those life skills to make sure that you could move on from the federal job guarantee to create a lifestyle, a work lifestyle that's perfect for you. Choose a job that you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. And that is what the federal job guarantee promises. This federal job guarantee ensures that the 11 million people who are actively seeking employment will get the resources to achieve their goals. What we do is we even out the playing field so that they could get resources to work a full-time job. It gives us new schools, new buildings, new counselors. It gives us new parks. It allows us to have access to mental health, rehabilitation, and it gives us everything we could ask for. What the UBI gives us is just money. What the federal job guarantee promises is an all-inclusive package deal with money, healthcare, education, retirement plans. You can name it all. Now show of hands, who wants the federal job guarantee? Come on, come on. I know you guys want it. And that'll be all.
Well, thank you very much. Give them another round of applause. I mean, that was just great. Okay, so here's the problem. You know, it's going to be really hard to choose. I don't know about you, but I was playing mental ping pong throughout this whole conversation. So, but as audience members, you get to vote for the winner of the debate. And it will be announced at the end of the program. So the pink card in your program has a link and a QR code. Either of those will take you to the form to vote for the winner. And after you vote, you want to think of questions to ask Steve Grove, CEO and publisher of the Star Tribune. So there are cards and pens on your table. Write them down and really ask hard questions, okay? I mean, let's ask some hard questions. And now I'd like to introduce Mayor Fry and ask him to join our debaters on stage. And I'm getting a hint that there's going to be a change. What's that sound? That's absolutely fine. Okay. So there's a slight change in the program. We move on the fly here. So we're going to shift to Steve Grove and I are going to have a conversation. I think I'm going to ask the students, you go back to your table, get some food. It's good food, okay? And like to, Steve, why don't you come on up? And then I'll call you up later on for the mayor when he's here. Okay, great. So, Steve, you want to sit there? And yeah, and I'll sit there. So it's my honor to welcome Steve Grove. He's CEO and publisher of the Star Tribune. And previously, he was Governor Tim Walz's commissioner of the Department of Employment and Economic Development, better known as DEED. He led the administration's efforts to grow and protect the Minnesota economy and its workers through a dynamic and challenging 4 years in state history. Prior to that, Grove spent 12 years as an executive at Alphabet's Google, and most recently, he was the founding director of the Google News Lab, which was developed to help media companies and startups drive innovation in the news industry. So now what I want you to imagine is there's a fireplace, and we have these nice, easy chairs, maybe maybe an old-fashioned. A couple of questions to ask here. So just, really just to start off, a basic question, which are oftentimes the hardest question. Why is economic inequality such a pressing issue for our society and our economy?
That's a great question. And wow, those students were amazing, weren't they?
It was great.
Unbelievable. Give a round of applause. That was an incredible debate. Well, it's pressing on a number of levels. I think something we all feel in our hearts is that fairness matters, right? That this whole country is founded on an ideal that all people are created equal. And fairness matters not only because of the moral issues at play, but because societies work better when you feel like everyone's got a fair shot. And when you don't, society starts to kind of desiccate. It sort of falls apart. And I think if you feel like you have a lane into opportunity, to growth, to wealth, to a stable life for your family, things start to make sense. And I would point to a number of examples, but the most recent one we felt here was, of course, during the pandemic, when suddenly, overnight, about 400,000 jobs were lost in our state. And hundreds of thousands of people were immediately applying for unemployment insurance, a program that our department ran when I was at DEED, and had to figure out how they were going to make it. And the federal government stepped in and put forward, as I think Abdi Hamid said earlier, these $600 payments that every single person who applied for unemployment insurance could get, because we knew it was the fault of no one in society that this pandemic had hit, yet here we were facing an unprecedented challenge. The governor also moved to put an executive order in place to make sure employers weren't hurt by that as well. That program really saved our economy, not only from the sense of giving people a sense of fairness, but it put money into the pockets of people to spend, to keep things afloat while we figured out what we were going to do with vaccines and the like. So again and again, I think governments step in to try to make things fair when we need to and get out of the way when we don't. But I think it's both a moral and an economic issue. If you feel like you've got a shot, you contribute more, you build greater things, and you can take more advantage of the talent that's in our economy.
So building on that, I mean, you were head of DEED, you had the pandemic, you had the recession, as you're saying, and you had the civil unrest following the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah.
And one of the things that struck me during the pandemic, I mean, you can read about economic inequality, you kind of see it, but it made the reality of it really stark. And the cumulative vulnerabilities of so many people, particularly those living on a low and unstable income.
Yeah.
So what did you learn from your purchase of DEED about what you feel needs to be done to help people that have low and unstable incomes? Because they do work. They share resources, live in multi-generational, they're doing many things in our society, but it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. I think you have to appeal to people's collective sense of fairness, again, that kind of foundational ideal of our economy and of our country. But at our agency, one of the things we started immediately when we came into DEED was we said, what is our mission, actually? What are we here to do as a body in government that's supposed to focus on strengthening our economy? And we came up with a mission statement that is super simple, but that really guided almost everything we did from there. And it was simply, we are here to empower the growth of the Minnesota economy for everyone. And those last two words, for everyone, are obviously the most important two words in that mission statement. And we can all kind of nod our heads and say, of course, we want to empower the growth of the Minnesota economy for everyone. But when you start to actually play that out and apply it to different programs or different settings, it gets tricky pretty quickly. And I'll give you an example. You know, you mentioned the civil unrest during after George Floyd's murder and the neighborhoods that were decimated by that unrest. And soon following that, we gathered the legislature to figure out how are we going to rebuild those neighborhoods. And we were negotiating over how do we get payments to those corridors to make sure we can rebuild the businesses that were damaged. And it should have been a simple conversation. It should have been as simple as, boy, a tornado hit Roseau, so we're all going to put state tax dollars in to help Roseau recover. But it wasn't that simple. And the negotiations that we ended up having had a lot to do with, if you put money over here, you're taking it from over here. You're moving someone's cheese, and so it's not fair. But that completely misses the point that, in fact, Minneapolis, for example, as an economic engine of the state, contributes about $4 in taxes to every $1 it takes in. So strengthening Minneapolis strengthens Minnesota. But also because those neighborhoods were primarily in underrepresented communities, there was a fairness issue around inequality as well. And when you look at sort of the economic impact of racial inequality in our country since around the year 2000, I think Citigroup did a study on this recently and said there's $16 trillion lost on the table for the country because of racial injustice in our country. So this idea that you're just carving up pieces of the pie and putting it somewhere else, which is the easy place to go to when you think of helping everyone, is actually economically incorrect and an unstable way to look at an economy. And so I think having that kind of thesis going and helped us make the case, but it's hard. And it's one of those issues where it's the head and the heart have to play together to make sure we're making the right calls for the state.
So now so you're in the tech industry for a long time.
Yeah.
And you'll be shocked to know economists sometimes disagree. But depending on whose studies you're looking at, over the past 40 years, about half of the increase in wage inequality came from automation and technological advances. Now we have this thing called AI that's out there.
Yeah.
And there's this risk that AI, artificial intelligence, could supercharge inequality in the United States.
Yeah.
And how do we prevent that?
Well, it's moving so fast, isn't it? I mean, who here has used ChatGPT so far? I mean, most people have given it a whirl, right? It's this fascinating new tool. It kind of instantly goes to a place in your imagination where you can imagine the robots taking over everything, right? It's sort of instantly easy to figure that out. And I compare it a little bit to sort of the early days of social media. I was one of the earlier employees at YouTube. We were trying to figure out the influence that social media could have on our economy. And I think that governments were a little slow to recognize it. And frankly, we in Silicon Valley at the time were very optimistic about it. Like, what could go wrong? We're democratizing access to media, to power. It's all upside. What could possibly be bad about this great new tool? A dozen years later, we were all just kind of face-palming on it and still trying to figure it out. And regulators in Washington were very slow to make any moves, and now it's so much harder. So I think with technology, you have to start from the premise that it works for us, we don't work for it. It is a tool to make life in our world better. And if you take that approach and you lean into using it and trying to figure it out and regulating early rather than late and integrating into our education system so students are figuring out how to use AI to make the world better, I think you get to a place that's a little stronger. And I think it's probably going to require some new solutions. And you heard that debate tonight about maybe UBI being one of them. I think it's something worth exploring. I mean, this is a transformational technology that's going to change so much. To get into it just a touch deeper, I think a lot of people, the headlines are like, oh, for example, the news industry, the robots are going to write our news articles. There's not going to be quality journalism anymore. And I think that's an important question to ask. But what we tell our team is, okay, that's probably not ultimately going to be a value add that we can provide. But boy, AI can help us provide a lot more on the back end of making a place like the Star Tribune run more efficiently, run more quickly, make our archives easier to access. So there's power in it, but you've got to be thoughtful and you've got to be doing it hand in hand with government, which is, I think, why you've seen Congress and legislators move a lot quicker this time, having kind of moved slower in the social media age.
So you recently wrote an article about a listening tour that you took around the state in the Star Tribune. And what did you learn about economic inequality while you're traveling around the state? I mean, what did you observe or hear?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing that fuels inequality is asymmetric access to information. And you look at Minnesota, a place that has seen 70% decline in the number of journalists that work outside the Twin Cities area in the last 10 years, and a 25% decline in newspapers across the state. We are living in a time where journalism is facing a huge crisis. And when you don't have access to information that you trust, you make different decisions. During the pandemic, we traveled the state a lot. We talked to rural communities. We tried to get information out there about vaccines, how to access them, what the latest regulations were, how we were navigating this, just being super open that, hey guys, we're writing this playbook as we go, help us. And I heard time and again people tell me outside of the Twin Cities, well, I didn't even know this was happening. How can I get access to the information? And I'd say, This is before I was in the Star Tribune. I said, well, did you read the Star Tribune? Like, we don't read the Star Tribune. We don't trust the Star Tribune. We don't. And I said, well, did you read our government website, which is even harder to get people to. I was like, why don't you go to d.gov, you know, which was probably naive in my part. But the reality is, if there was a strong local paper in those communities, right, that, you know, staffed by reporters that people trust, you know, building connections to the community that share this information, there's access to information in a way that creates more opportunity. I think inequality in our state has a lot of different vectors. You heard a lot about racial inequality up here from the debaters, which I think is by far our biggest crisis. But there's this tension between rural and urban Minnesota too. This has long been a state that has uniquely tied urban and rural together. When you look at our history, you know, we have one of the largest highway systems in the country. We've had one of the best broadband systems in the country. We were one of the first states to actually put money into, you know, water and sewer systems from the state government to rural parts of the state. So there's this Minnesota tradition of trying to hang things together and make this a state that's connected. But I think that's a little bit under threat, given how our politics have evolved and the pandemic accelerated some of that. I think we got a shot of stitching it back together. Maybe the Star Tribune can play a role in that. I think people are yearning for it. Certainly what I heard on the road across these 11 different cities we visited is we want Minnesota to feel like a place that's glued together, where we have a sense of connection. And I think that's possible here, maybe more than any other state, but it takes hard work.
So why does the publisher of the Star Tribune care about economic inequality? You know, in your
We're trying to sell subscriptions, so we need people to.
Exactly. And it could be. I think that is the.
It's one of the answers.
It's one of the answers. Yes.
It is one of the answers. Yeah, and also I think a sense of fairness breeds civic participation and involvement, and reading a newspaper is part of that. Everyone here knows that Minnesota has this great tradition of we vote more, we volunteer more, we give more, we also read more. And if things feel unfair, or you feel like, gosh, I can only go over to my one corner of the internet or my one, you know, silo and feel safe or connected, I think that hurts us as a state, and it certainly hurts our business model, which is we want everybody to be our customer and come in to connect with us. And of course, a stronger economy helps businesses too.
Okay, so we've heard about the universal basic income and the federal job guarantee. So I'm going to put those two aside, because we're not going to take a side on that whole discussion or that whole debate. You might want to listen to some other people about which side you want to go on.
Yeah.
But you know, you've been in the technology industry, you've been, you know, at Deed, and then now, you know, in the media. What is it that you see works in terms of not just people getting a job, but getting a job that offers prospects for a career, offers prospects for advancement, that says, hey, you can get health care benefits, you can get retirement benefits. So, you know, sometimes you can get a job, but as the students were mentioning, doesn't necessarily pay the bills.
Not a very good job.
But it doesn't really open the prospects of here's opportunities are being opened up to me.
Yeah. Well, I think it takes both employers and job seekers looking at things a little bit differently. You know, one of the things that I think is very true in Minnesota is, yes, we have a tight labor market, but there's a lot of workers hiding in plain sight that employers just aren't finding. They might not have a connection to an immigrant community or to a community who has disabilities or to seniors who want to work part-time or even to young people who want to connect. So I think employers have to be willing to think differently. And I think workers have to consider different pathways to careers. I mean, we had this period of time in this country for 20 or 30 years where we told our students every day, college or bust. The only way to advance in your career is to to get a college degree, which is just sort of less true now. It's more risky to get a college degree than it might have been in the past. And we've kind of told everybody, oh, the trade jobs are all going to China. Well, my gosh, Minnesota's second largest industry is manufacturing. It's over $50 billion in GDP for our state every year. We need more people to take on trade careers that have great career paths. So it takes some rethinking from parents, from students, from employers. And it takes movements and efforts and social capital to change our system for the better. And one example that I just love, and I know we're going to honor our Attorney General here in a moment, Keith Ellison. He, myself, and others were really privileged to get to work with a bunch of young people a couple of years ago to reimagine one really critical piece of Minnesota's social safety net, which is our unemployment insurance program that until 2 years ago prohibited high school students from getting those benefits. There was this 1939 law in the books. It said that high school students didn't deserve those payments, even though their employers were paying in on their behalf. It was sort of an old school notion of like, they're just going to spend it on soda pops and records and roller skates or something. But as some of our students said tonight, many of these students are working to support their families. And when the pandemic hit and suddenly those students weren't getting unemployment checks because of that old law, their families suffered, right? And where everybody else was getting these $600 top-offs, they weren't. long story short, this group of students came together, they built a movement, they convinced legislators at a time when there was massive debate over whether unemployment insurance should even work, that in Minnesota we should expand it, and they didn't just, to high school students, and they didn't just convince Democrats, but Republicans as well. I think when people come together and they make a case and form strong coalitions, you can make real change in society and strengthen our social safety net. That to me is really inspiring.
And so, continuing this thread, this theme of the social safety net, the other change in our economy, I see it always seems that the safety net assumes that you're working in one job and for a long period of time, right? And maybe you lose your job, you get furloughed, and you come back. But you think about all the contract labor that's out there, all the gig work that's out there. So many people are doing alternative jobs. Now, in this downturn was what? The first time really that unemployment benefits were extended. So what did you learn about that? Because it seems to me the economy, the labor market is not what it was. And it's not what it was in the 1930s.
No, it's not. This is a great point. Like an Uber driver is not eligible for unemployment insurance, but the pandemic hits, nobody's going anywhere. How are they going to provide for their family? So thankfully the government stepped in and put these temporary programs in place for that year period long where we could pay contractors, we could top off some dollars, we could extend the length of benefits in ways that made sense for today's economy. Unfortunately, we've now just slid back to the system again that was sort of built for another era. We've got to re-examine these programs, not to just expand them willy-nilly, but to say what makes sense if you were starting it today and make the necessary changes to get there. I think it's important. We made that one change in Minnesota with high school students, which made a ton of sense. I think there's some real questions around what works and what doesn't. I will say that the $600 top-off, which got a lot of debate during the pandemic of does this work? Is it putting people on the couch? Is it getting them, pushing them away from finding jobs? We scoured at our department every study we could find. Like, is there anything that's showing that this is having a perverse incentive? And couldn't find any economist in the country, conservative or liberal, who could say that actually it was having an unintended effect. So I think in moments of crisis you move in, having some automatic clicks where these programs come in and play based on things like how high the unemployment rate is or where we're at in the economy are helpful, so the legislators don't have to pass it every time, but it just is an automatic thing. Legislators don't like to do that because it cedes power, but it just kind of makes good sense. So it deserves a rethink.
And you'd mentioned about there was a period of time where it was go to college. I mean, that was the solution to everything, right?
Yeah.
And now we're beginning to realize big mistake.
Yeah.
And so are you seeing more opportunities in the trades, in manufacturing, and alternative paths toward a good career, a good job, exercising a lot of skill?
There are. And I actually think AI is interesting here. You bring it back to technology a little bit. I think there's this conception that manufacturing jobs are your grandfather's manufacturing jobs, if you will. Sort of they're dirty, they're dangerous, they're hard, they're sort of low wage. You go to a manufacturing plant today and you see a very different world. You see, you go to Red Wing Shoes and they have an automated laser cutter that's optimizing the number of pieces of leather they cut out of a sheet of leather to make sure they get the most out of the boots. You've got people operating, laser fabrication machines to create solar panels on the iron range. These jobs are actually high-level jobs, and so going into the trades doesn't mean you're going into a life of meaningless labor. It means you're going into a life where actually there's a lot of momentum and excitement around technology making those jobs higher level. That's the promise of AI. The challenges we should admit as well. But there's some real pathways there that I think parents are waking up to more and more, given where higher education is going. It's not to say college isn't still a good bet, but there's momentum.
And are you seeing more activity on the local level in the state of Minnesota creating these pathways?
I think you are. I think the governor has put a lot of this forward during his time in Manufacturing Week and other moments like this have allowed Minnesota to kind of shine a light on this. I think apprenticeship programs, which give people a little bit of exposure, is helpful. If you see it, you can say, oh, I can kind of imagine what that job might look like. So it's a path, but I think for Minnesota, the key has always been we're a state that invests in people and in talent. You ask what the secret sauce of our economy is. Right. We invest in people, whether it's education, whether it's training, whether it's taking care of people when time gets tough. Things like paid family medical leave, which the legislature recently passed. A lot of debate on the specifics of that program, but the basic idea that this is a good state to work. It's what's attracted workers here forever. And I think the government is finally saying, given the labor market, we need to go out and actually convince people to come move here too. We've been a little bit soft on that for a while. We don't spend money on marketing. We don't get after there in the same way that some other more aggressive states do to say, hey, come live, come work here, come build your life here. It's one of the stickiest states in the nation. If you move here, it is hard to get someone to leave. In fact, our metro area has the highest ranking in the country for stickiness. Once you get here, hard to leave. got to get people here in the first place. And so I think the state has to spend money in that way. We have to kind of think that way as a culture. That kind of Minnesota humility of like, just be quiet, let just people come if they want to come. You kind of can't afford that in today's market. You got to get out there and pitch. So I know the mayor believes in that. I know the governor does. It's part of the job of government, but also part of the job of all of us to say, hey, this is a great place to live. Come be a part of it. And I think that'll help grow our economy too.
And so curious about your thoughts. So one of the, I think, really unexpected good things, there's nothing good to say about the pandemic, but one of the things that did come out of it is starting in the second half of 2020, you saw this enormous surge in new business applications.
Yeah.
And it hasn't it has continued. So new business applications up 58% in the second quarter of 2023 compared to the second quarter of 2019. Yeah. And we're seeing this here in Minnesota. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? I mean, my wife Mary's a venture investor, and so she's always looking at startups and what that activity looks like and where the pipelines are. And it spans the spectrum from technology on to just mom and pop shops. In times of disruption, you see people that discover opportunity, right? They say, okay, things are different than they once were. How might I do it differently? Number one, maybe they got dislodged from their previous job, so like maybe I'll put my own shingle out. But number two, they see a window where like, wow, technology is changing quickly. There's new opportunity here. How can I do something different and take advantage of a market opportunity? I think Minnesota is a state where you've seen us as a state and as an economy be really kind of nationally known as this place where you can find a stable corporate job given the density of Fortune 500s, which has, I think, made us a little bit more risk averse. I do think that's changing. The startup ecosystem here is really popping. This week actually is Twin Cities Startup Week, so you see a lot of startup investors and venture capitalists really bigging up Minnesota, and there's a ton of momentum. And I think in particular, when you talk about the technology space, med tech is a spot where I think Minnesota probably is the top market for it in the nation. The question that I think ties it back to the conversation from before is, how do you make sure that it's not just white guys like me starting technology startups, right? How do you make that a level playing field? And how do you make sure that entrepreneurs of color have access to capital when they walk into a bank and face different pressures and different prejudices than maybe their white counterparts do? That's, I think, a big job for Minnesota to figure out, something that there's a lot of government momentum on right now, but something that we have a chance here, I think, to rewrite that story for Minnesota if we do some really smart things and support entrepreneurs of color. So it's an exciting time, but it's an inflection point for our state, and we got to lean into it.
So here's questions from the audience.
Yeah.
What steps is the Star Tribune taking to bridge the divide between rural and urban Minnesota? What advice do you have for high school students? So we'll just say first, the divide between rural and urban Minnesota. Then we'll go to the second question.
We mentioned before kind of that decline of newspapers, outside of the Twin Cities. It is a real crisis. I don't know if the Star Tribune can sort of replace that in the same sense of we'll cover every volleyball game and city council meeting of a small town. But I do think we have ambitions to expand. We need to have more reporters outside of the Twin Cities. We think it's actually a unique business opportunity for us to tie more of the state together and be that glue that kind of gives Minnesotans a sense of what's happening around the state in a more unique way. So you should look for us to expand geographically with our reporters, with our approach, but also to step back and take a look at what unique issues our state's facing and bring different voices into that conversation and amplify them, through our platform. I think it's a big opportunity to maybe be that glue that holds the state together and helps us understand ourselves a little bit better. And also, maybe shakes down some of the misconceptions that urban and rural have against each other. You talk about this divide all the time, but there's just so many false assumptions that are out there. And if you're telling stories that shine a light on these things, and you don't just swoop into a small town because there was a murder, but because there's something interesting happening, I think there's that opportunity to kind of lift up the good things we can understand about Minnesota too.
Now, I think we could actually take some advice from our debaters, but this question is, what advice do you have for high school students?
Oh, gosh. Well, you guys are a great example. Pursue something you're passionate about it and do it really well. Be great at something. Choose something you really care about, put the energy and attention to it, work hard, and believe you can change the world, because you can. I mean, I mentioned that story before, those high school students changing unemployment insurance law. That was a long shot. But my gosh, they found a way, and they found partners. And I think maybe the advice to high school students is follow what these 4 people are doing, and you're going to do great. They're amazing role models.
And do you believe the recent wave of labor action will result in tangible or structural changes that address economic inequality? So thinking about the UAW strike, you have the writers' strike.
I think this is a moment where our country is really grappling what organized labor means in our economy today and what it should look like, whether it's companies that wouldn't traditionally have unions figuring out if that makes sense or not, whether it's these strikes fighting for different benefits. I think a lot of that, at the center of it, is what is technology and AI gonna mean for our future? and it's moving really fast. And that's why I think getting ahead of it with government action that makes sense and is thoughtful and that experiments in the same way that we experiment with technology and with business makes a lot of sense to me. And why some of these pilot programs that the team surfaced earlier make a ton of sense. Let's see if it works someplace and move forward. So I do think change is coming. I think it's a moment of reckoning. The pandemic gave the whole country a chance to step back and say, what's a good job? You know, what's a great job in our economy? What makes sense? And it's an unprecedented moment of worker power because of that. And frankly, it was long overdue. So I think it's a good debate for us to have, and it was a good forcing function in our national conversation.
So I like this one because it involves a magic wand.
Oh,
magic wands are always good. So if you had a magic wand giving you any resource and unlimited funds, see, this is why I like this. What 2 changes would you make to create economic equality and opportunity for Minnesota?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, number 1, give everyone a home with a stable place to live and a place to be. That's sort of foundational. And I guess, again, if it's a magic wand, I'd say give everybody a job. It's the best social service program there is. If the magic wand could make that possible, and I think some of the ideas put forward earlier were there, but a home and a job is the start of it all, I think. And
what should we expect from the Star Tribune over the next 3 years?
Great question. We're figuring that out ourselves, as my team will share with you. I think you'll expect to see us moving a lot more assertively to create a better organization for the state. I mean, I think everyone who follows any of the news around media and the headwinds that are out there knows that we face some very real challenges. We as a newspaper have been a newspaper for a very long time. We deliver newspapers to your front door. That print model has been how the Star Tribune has existed for 156 years in Minnesota. And that's going away, not tomorrow, but it is fading. I bet you most of our high school students who have been before probably don't hardly ever pick up a newspaper unless it's, I don't know, part of a debate assignment or something. They read it online. So, I think we are going to transition to a digital model. We're going to do it thoughtfully. We're going to go where our customers are, but we're going to be aggressive. I think most people in the industry have been in a state of managed decline for some time, just given the way that media is. And that's not what growth looks like. That's not what Minnesota deserves. So you're going to see us expand, in terms of the issues we cover, the scope that we focus on, and you're going to see us listen as well. I think that community tour that we did earlier this year was just the start of us saying, we're not going to figure this out on our own in a room with whiteboards at the Star Tribune. We need to be out in the community listening to people. If your media organization feels like an ivory tower that's just sort of dispatching information to you, you're probably going to trust it less. So we need to be engaged truth tellers in our community, not members of an ivory tower, and I think that will get us in a place where we feel more like your neighbors that are helping you live a better life here than maybe the big media who's out to sort of spin or shake things up.
And there's a couple of very good questions, this one, but I'm just going to pluck out one. What inspired you?
What inspires me? Well, I would say, my wife inspires me because she's an amazing woman and she does incredible things, and we have a relationship that I find inspirational. I think to me, for us, we moved back to Minnesota. I grew up in Northfield, but we moved away. I moved away when I was a graduate from high school and came back 5 years ago after having been gone for a couple of decades. And the idea of kind of reinventing ourselves in Minnesota and making a bet on this place, to me itself was inspirational to say, all right, we've had 2 kids. We had 1-year-old twins at the time. We want to come and invest in a community and in a place and do what we can to make it better. That to me is inspiring, and then it's inspiring, I think, to get to work with people that want to do that too. And at the Star Tribune, gosh, I'm surrounded by some just amazing colleagues who are just in it for all the right reasons. They feel that purpose in their veins for why journalism matters. And so I think today, just day to day coming into the office and getting to work with really thoughtful journalists and business people and beyond is really inspiring.
And last question, and it's a hard one. Income inequality and equity won't change until education equity exists.
Yeah.
So this whole issue about education reform, making sure that everyone has the kind of education to take advantage of the opportunities you've been talking about.
Yeah. Well, it's foundational, right, that everyone has access to a great education, and there's huge disparities. Mary and I started a nonprofit back when we were in Silicon Valley called Silicon North Stars, where every year we'd fly about 12 high school students from Minnesota out to Silicon Valley, take them for a tour around Google and Instagram and Meta and other places, and then we put them through a startup boot camp and just getting them exposure to a career in technology. And that kind of, if you can see it, you can be it mentality that I think comes naturally to people with opportunity, but doesn't to those who live below the poverty line, like the students we were bringing out, is a really important piece of education. And jobs in technology in particular, which have huge racial disparities, far more than typical jobs in the economy, really need that kind of diversity to grow. So I see this firsthand in the Silicon North Star students we work with. By the way, now that we live here, we just connect them with entrepreneurs and startup leaders here in Minnesota because the economy here is popping so much and there's opportunity. But I think it's an ecosystem, right? It's nonprofits, it's our public school systems, it's organizations like the Urban Debate League that bring together students and give them a way to kind of move beyond the classroom into a real world dynamic to kind of make that education come to life that are so important. So it's inspiring to be here tonight and see that happening on stage.
Well, I could keep asking questions, but I'd like instead to invite the students to
yes,
come up
let's
here.
do that. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So I want to invite the students to come on up. And so it's going to be my pleasure, while the students are moving up here, to introduce Mayor Fry. And I'm going to ask him to join our debaters on stage. So we have 5 seats. If you want to stand here or if you want to sit, it'll be up to you. Now you can find Mayor Fry's full biography in your program. And I also want to say, unfortunately, Mayor Carter not able to join us this evening. So before the students interview Mayor Jacob Fry, we're going to see a trailer on a recent documentary produced by Mark Levin on universal basic income. And it's called It's Basic, that features Mayor Carter. Mayor Jacob Fry is the 48th mayor of the city of Minneapolis, elected in 2017 and re-elected in 2021. Jacob is committed to increasing access to affordable housing, strengthening community police relations, and fueling economic growth through inclusive policies. So now we're going to look at the trailer, and then the students are going to grill you.
This administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America.
We are 60 years into a war on poverty, and giving poor people money still feels new.
When you are coming from poverty, you're stuck.
People say to me, Mayor, what's the solution to poverty? And I answer with a very simple one-word answer: money.
It costs money just to exist.
We started with one mayor in one small city with 125 people, and now we're at 80 mayors.
In the city of Providence.
Austin, here in Long Beach.
City of New Orleans. Guaranteed income help me get back to work. You put a little gas in my tank, I'll show you how far I can go.
It's much easier to integrate a bus than it is to guarantee an annual income, for instance, to get rid of poverty.
My father called for the guaranteed income. We have to figure out how to develop the will in people.
America has always sold this dream of there's nothing you can accomplish through our hard work. Well, all the hardworking people aren't getting fair wages. So America has to explain that.
We live in a nation that is the richest on the planet Earth. We spend about $630 billion helping people with wealth, giving them tax breaks to create more wealth. But as soon as you start talking about giving basic income, people start asking, well, what are they going to do with that money?
Well, it's $500 toward food every month. $500 a lot of people don't think is a lot, but it is a lot to a lot of people.
When you hear about how bad the government is and then they did something like this, it's like, well, makes you rethink things.
I don't think we know yet if this is a moment in time or if this is a fundamental shift in the way we think about who we are as a country. I think it depends on what we do next.
Okay. So starting off with my first question,
Yes.
you know, thinking of Governor Walz's like free lunch plan and how it's not means tested, how do you find out whether or not you should means test a program?
First, let me just say how honored I am to be up here with all of you. I mean, I've now done this Mayor's Challenge, I think, for 6 or 7 years. And I am constantly blown away by the caliber of individual. It's not just in debate skills, but it's the highest level of integrity. It's this commitment to our city and to the community. And I'm really pumped to be up here on the stage with all of you. And thank all of you as well for your commitment to this organization as well. It makes a big, big difference for a whole lot of people. So the question was about means testing. So what we are doing right now in Minneapolis, in St. Paul, is a means testing. What we are rolling out is a pilot. And our commitment, and this is not just a commitment with guaranteed basic income, this is a commitment with everything that we do, is that we follow the data. We follow the evidence. The evidence might show that what we are doing is functional, that it's working, and that people are benefiting in a great way. By the way, it also might show the opposite. And so, first of all, our commitment is to the evidence. And so when we roll out with $500 per person for 2,000 people over a 24-month period, what we're saying, one is that we believe this to work, and I can get into depth as to why I believe it will work and why we should be expanding on this kind of program. But we're not assuming that. So the Federal Reserve right now is going to be testing to see how this assistance does or does not help people. It'll be testing on how it helps lift people out of poverty to begin with. And we're going to follow where the information goes. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about being committed to facts and not a specific ideology or policy. It's a belief, it's a gut feeling, yes, of course, but that's not enough. It's got to be tested.
Sometimes in debates, it can be really easy to just forget people have stories, and especially when you're dealing with income and poverty, it can be really big and mixed up in numbers and stuff like that. Do you know of people's stories that have got caught up in just numbers and been forgotten?
We do. I started out talking about evidence and about the numbers that are attached to the programs that we push out. But here's the thing. Behind every single one of those numbers is a person. It's a person who has a family, who has a life, who has dreams and goals. And if you forget that, you kind of don't fully understand the underlying reason as to why you're doing the thing to begin with. Mm-hmm. And so what we try to do on a very routine basis is get out of the ivory tower of City Hall and talk to people, not with the press around, mm-hmm. not something that you're going to post on social media, but just talk to people and have an understanding as to what it means to them specifically and get their story. So the way we rolled out, for instance, the guaranteed basic income was through a program called Stable Homes, Stable Schools. Yeah. And when I took office, we found that around 8.5% of our Minneapolis public school age population was experiencing homelessness or was on the verge of it. And so what's the best way to solve homelessness? You give people homes. And so we provided homes to over 3,000 kids in our Minneapolis public school system. And those homes were hopefully within a certain vicinity of the school. Now, not only does that benefit the student and benefit the family, but what we started finding is that it also benefited the classroom itself, because what we were seeing is far too many young people moving from school to school and class to class, even multiple times in 1 year. Yeah. And if you give the stability at home, you provide the stability at school, and there is no higher correlation with good grades than the home itself. Now, this program was working so well, we had such a wonderful partnership with a number of social workers that were in the school, and we had that kind of infrastructure set up. So it became a great way to then also incorporate guaranteed basic income. And you go out and you talk to them, and you hear how it's impacted them. And I'll just give you an example without naming names of some of the stories that I've heard. The stories that I've heard around the impact of guaranteed basic income in the home is that it gave this flexibility that people needed. I heard this mother say to me, mother of 4 young, extraordinary children. She was doing it on her own. And what she said is that the home plus the GBI, she goes, it gave me a chance to breathe. She says, I was always on the verge of going homeless, always. If the car broke down, I was about to be homeless. Why? Because I needed to get it fixed in order to go to my job. If I didn't get it fixed, I wouldn't have a job, wouldn't be able to pay the rent. Next thing you know, we're on the streets. Something unexpected happens, sickness, which happens to everybody. She was on the verge of going homelessness, and with that, her 4 kids as well. And so with that flexibility of that $500 per month, it gave her a little bit of solace in saying that when something happens, she can fix it. And I think that perhaps means more than anything.
So, although Minnesota and St. Paul doesn't have a guaranteed job program, if they did, what would that look like, and what would that complete in the city?
So the question was, so the state of Minnesota and the Twin Cities, none of us have a guaranteed job program. I think it's a great idea, first of all. You know, we got guaranteed basic income. We can have guaranteed job program as well. And Steve Grove, I think, said it eloquently. You know, there's no better social service program than a job. And we also know that it's one of the best ways to improve safety. This is not my quote, but the best way to stop a bullet is a job. And if we're able to provide those jobs to begin with, then it not only benefits that individual, but it benefits our whole economy. So, you know, a number of different states or counties throughout the country have tried different things. But one of the things that we've noticed most in the Twin Cities is right now we have a whole lot of employers that need talented and skilled workers. We have a whole lot of workers still. Even when unemployment is in, you know, rock bottom levels, we still have a whole lot of people that need a job, but for some reason, oftentimes they don't make that connection. Why? Well, a lot of times the employer doesn't want to spend, especially during a time of uncertainty like we've been going through, the 3 to 4, 6 months of time training somebody in. Well, what if we were to subsidize that first 3 to 6 months worth of work? What if we were to come in, pay for the salary for that initial period of time, and then what happens at the end of the 3 months? Well, the employer has got a worker who is skilled and ready to go. The worker has a job. And by the way, then you don't need to be paying for the unemployment anymore because they're employed. So if you guarantee that program right from the get-go, I think you're benefiting the city, the state from a number of different levels. It's a great idea.
When it comes to making extremely difficult decisions about whether to implement like a basic income or a job guarantee, how does much of your decision is influenced by what is politically possible versus what is the most ideal policy?
The truth is, in Minneapolis, the political possibility, especially when you're pushing a progressive policy, is not the barrier. It truly is not. The barrier is making sure that you can set up something that is sustainable for the long term. And so what you see on that trailer right now, and what you see as far as the mayors that are for basic income, I'm a member of them, most of those mayors don't actually, I think almost all of those mayors don't actually think that the best jurisdiction to be running a guaranteed basic income is the city. It's not. The cities, or most cities throughout the country, have access to a couple of sources of revenue. And I'm going to get a little technical here. We in Minneapolis have access largely to property taxes. Property taxes are a regressive form of taxation. They disproportionately impact poor people, older people, and people without jobs. because you still have to pay the underlying property taxes even if you're not making any money. By the way, renters also pay property taxes just indirectly through their rent. And so the best way to institute a program like this in a non-regressive fashion, so in other words, that isn't hurting poor people, is by doing it through an income tax. That's the best way to do it, and we in the city of Minneapolis don't have access to one. So, you might be asking, well, then why are you doing this? The reason why we're doing it is we want to show the world that this works. We want to show the world that it's effective. And then hopefully, once we've shown that it is effective through evidence and through data, we can then have other entities, other jurisdictions, federal for instance, pick this program up and run with it to provide a more of a progressive taxation model.
Very cool. Does anyone have a last question that they'd like to ask? One more question?
Yeah. This question's more toward the crowd. Have all of you voted?
Yes.
If you haven't, please vote now.
Yes.
We're really looking forward to see the results.
That's right. That's right. Well said.
Well, why don't you guys just stay up here? Just stay up here. And Mayor, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is
You
great.
good with me?
You're good with
All
it.
right.
We're good.
Hey, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for supporting this program. It matters a lot. Thanks.
So now I'd like to introduce Minnesota's First Lady, Gwen Waltz, who will present the Champion of Change Award on behalf of the Minnesota Urban Debate League and Augsburg University. Gwen is Minnesota's 39th First Lady. As a lifelong Minnesotan, she is excited to work on behalf of all Minnesotans. She has received degrees from Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter and Minnesota State University in Mankato. Educating Minnesota's children is one of Gwen's passions. Throughout her career, Gwen has taught in public, alternative, and migrant schools. That has shaped her vision. Please join me in welcoming First Lady.
What a fantastic discussion, right? This has been riveting. I think this discussion models so much of what is vital about the Urban Debate League, right? I'm not sure that discussions like this are necessarily happening at the Capitol in DC at this moment, or in too many places. But this is a model for how we think, right? And how we proceed. I have so many things that I was making mental notes about tonight that we want to follow up, and I can see so many people in the room doing the same thing because it's provocative, right? And it's important, and you're engaged, and you all are really good speakers, right? And engaged your audience in really important ways. And nights like this happen because they're fostered by educational institutions like Augsburg University, because we're having an intellectual discussion based on facts and ideas and stories and truths and reporting and places like the Star Tribune that value that too. I do want to say Steve Grove's mom is a teacher. Just want to put that out there. I think you can tell. I think you can tell. Yeah, right. I have the unique privilege of presenting this award tonight, and I just want to make a few remarks about the journey that the governor and I have been able to share with Keith Ellison. And if Tim were here, if the governor were here, not just on the Zoom thing, he would say, "Hey, brother," and Keith would say, "Hey, brother," because we were elected to Congress in the same year, served for 12 years, and then came back to Minnesota and both ran for statewide office at the same time. And this isn't as good as any of the debater jokes, but they call each other brothers from another mother. That's from some movie, but with a fish or something. And I can't remember the name, but anyway. And you might not think that. You might not know that extensive relationship between the Attorney General and the governor and our families. But when you share values, when you share priorities, when you share a vision of the country, of your state, and of change, there's a lot to build on. The first time I got to work with then Representative Ellison was in a Get Out the Vote effort. You see, Keith had determined that not enough people in his congressional district were able to vote. And they might not be able to vote because there was a language barrier, or there was a transportation barrier, or there were just all kinds of pieces in place. And so he elicited the help of places like Augsburg University and friends all around and said, let's come together and do Get Out the Vote workshops. And so Tim and I came and learned from Keith and learned from his congressional district how to better get out the vote. And it didn't stop there. That went across the country because voter participation, the participation of people who were voting increased so dramatically under Keith's leadership. It had been like few had ever seen before, and they wanted to know what he was doing. And as we learned, we decided this. We would go on the civil rights pilgrimage together with John Lewis. And so Keith and I and Tim went to Alabama, went to Birmingham, and on a bright, sunny day, we walked together across the Edmund Pettus Bridge with John Lewis leading us, reenacting that march and that movement. And we did that at least 4 times together. That is the kind of person Keith Ellison is. He's not just all about the show. He's also about the work. We actually increased voter participation, taught other people the methods that Keith had developed and learned, trained people, and then we sealed it with a walk across the bridge about voting rights and civil rights. We need more people like Keith Ellison in our world who do the work, who know the work, and celebrate the work, which is why I think he's a perfect champion of change. We want to recognize community leaders who've become powerful forces for positive social, political, and economic change for our community. And more than that, beacons of hope for all of us who are on stage tonight and all of us who are sitting in the audience. People like Keith and so many of you have chosen to take your time and talents and to serve in state government or in local communities or sometimes in federal government. We need people like that to have those sorts of careers and make those sorts of jumps because we need the discussions and the ideas. Keith leads the way on this. There are previous winners like the LG, Governor Peggy Flanagan, and if she were here tonight, this is what she'd say. She would say, people are poor because they don't have money. That's what she would say, right? And while that might seem like an obvious statement, it's not. It's not. It's not in the halls of the legislature, oftentimes. And it's not always in the decision-making halls that we see. So we need to get to the root of the problem and solve that. Also, Supreme Court Justice David Lillyhog, and last year, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. So Keith, you're in good company here, I think. But you know our Attorney General, and you've known him since January of 2019. After all, he is the people's lawyer. He is our Attorney General, and that job has been nonstop, at least since Governor Walz has taken office. You have helped Minnesotans afford their lives. You have helped them live with dignity and safety and respect. How important that is in today's world. And it is not uncomplicated. During COVID-19, his office enforced executive orders, many executive orders barring evictions and price gouging, and successfully defended the constitutionality of pandemic-related executive orders in court time and time again that were written and enacted to make Minnesotans, all Minnesotans, safer. And he stood strong in the face of injustice as the lead prosecutor in the murder of George Floyd. So please join me now in inviting the 2023 Champion of Change, our lawyer, the people's lawyer, my friend, the Champion of Change, Attorney General Keith Ellison. If I could invite Amy and President Pribanow to present this award and a photo.
Yes, right? And a photo. Yeah. Okay. We gotta have a photo. Should we move a little?
Should we, here we go like this? Should I say something?
You can just.
Gwen, thank you for that beautiful, very humbling introduction and remarks. I'll never forget me and you and Tim on that bus listening to people who risked it all, risked everything, their very lives, so that we could live in a multiracial democracy. And I got to tell you, Gwen, you and Tim, hand in hand with John Lewis and so many others, I got to tell you, I thought it was so wonderful that you didn't just go, but you went back and you went back. And, you know, we drove down this road between Selma and Montgomery, where a woman named Viola Liuzzo met her end. She was a white woman from Detroit who came all the way down to Montgomery, Alabama to help black voters participate in democracy for the first time in some of their lives, and paid with her life. Gwen and Tim Walz are the kind of people who honor that. And therefore we must be, because our city, our state, and our country needs us to be those kind of people right here, right now. And so I'm just humbled beyond belief to receive this beautiful award. And it is interesting that we went to Congress together, we left Congress together, and now we're right across the hall from each other. But it's such a joy. One of the great privileges of my life is to serve with you, Gwen, and your beloved husband, who's such a dear friend of mine and all of us. Let me just say to the debaters, if there is one piece of advice that I could give you, it is to get some caring adult mentors in your life. Some of you guys might go on and use your debate skills to serve our country. And maybe some of you might not. Maybe you'll just do debate this time and go on and find some other thing you're interested in doing. But you will always benefit from the relationships that you're making right here, right now. You might think, well, I'm just 16, I'm just 17. I'm telling you, when you are 26 and 27 and 36 and 37, you will be engaged with some of the people who are in this room right now. And so it's your responsibility to reach down to some of those folks who might be 11 or 12 You know any? They're looking at you. They're admiring you. They're like, did you know my sister's in the urban debate program? And they want to be just like you. So as people reach to you and inspire you, you reach down yourself. And we will form a human chain, which will bring us to higher heights than we've ever imagined. You guys ready for that? All right. We're so proud of you. We love you. Don't we? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, that was really wonderful. That was a very moving moment. So thank you. And so I'm going to take advantage of my position because I have the microphones here. And so I'd just like to ask the students one question. I'm going to start down with you, Lily, and then we'll just move our way down here. Okay? And what are your plans for the coming year? I mean, give us a sense of what are you planning? You know, school's starting. You've got this debate thing. So what are you planning for the coming year?
This upcoming year, it's a lot of focusing on schoolwork. Whoa. Thanks. Oh, that's so much better. Oh my God. Beautiful. Okay. For this upcoming year, I will be still doing debate at Highland Park Senior High School with my partner, Audrey Snowbeck. We've kind of decided to focus a little bit more on our schoolwork over debate, just a little bit. So, because this will come as a surprise to no one, but debate is a lot of work. And so we'll be competing in tournaments. Aside from that, I go to an IB school, so there'll be a lot of work in that department. I'm taking 6 IB tests this year, which is a lot of them, as in all of them that you will take. And you have options to split them for 2 years, but I opted to not, which was a special decision that I could have made. Outside of that, I work at a restaurant, and I've been training in as a chef there, and that's been really fun. And so I've also been kind of battling with, do I want to pursue like chef things for the rest of my life, or at least for a bit of the rest of my life, or do I want to be like a teacher? Because I love coaching middle school debate. It's one of my favorite things in like the whole world. Yeah. It's so cool to see the kids like learn how to talk about what they're thinking and learn about like the world around them and like gain their voices, which is super cool. And so that's kind of like my internal battle right now, I guess. And yeah.
Same question for me?
Same question.
Okay. So my rest of the year looks like, for debate specifically, I am officially starting in Novice C, which basically means that I have to find my own cards. Things are not given to me. So a lot of research coming up for the next debate season coming up. Outside of debate for school, hopefully hitting it home strong. This is my senior year, so I'm looking for colleges to go to next year. I'm just trying to focus on my academics along with debates, like Lily. Hopefully more academics this year. Not likely though, but getting into colleges, making sure that all my applications are sent through, and hopefully I hear back from someone, and getting ready to leave Minnesota, sadly. I do want to travel around United States, figure out what area suits me best, and just getting on with my life.
All right. I'm a junior. These are seniors. I'm kind of young, you know. But, so I don't have a lot of thinking of college yet. I mean, I'm probably going to get into it maybe like late or early summer. Currently, right now, I am taking PSEO at St. Paul Concordia, and I'm taking a few classes there. And some of my interests are to take literature classes, and some other few things I'm looking forward for is debate. I'm hoping that I get to coach soon this year. I know like because I went to like all the tournaments to like judge the middle schoolers, and like I showed up at camp one day and they were all like, I know you, and I was like, that it's like the feeling of just like, you know, you're in your own community, and I think like debate is really fun, especially moving also forward with debate for this season. I hope I'm gonna be getting through a lot of fun debate nights with my debate partner, Ari. They're right there. I love you too. So yeah, just my plan is to have a fun debate season this year.
Hi. Looking forward to this new debate season. Even if I'm not gonna have a partner this year, you know, I'm still gonna enjoy the best of it. And I think in the future, you know, it's kind of hard to say now, being this young, what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. But I definitely do want to continue debate in college. I want to tie it into my career. I was looking into IP and patent law, actually. So if I can grab any LinkedIns or talk to some people here, that'd be great. But I'm looking forward to meeting new people and starting new things and learning new things.
Great. That's wonderful. And now, by the way, you all have to be voting. I mean, you really do have to vote. That is part of this. So that's going to be hard to do. But make sure that you vote. And now we'd like to introduce Amy Cram-Helwick, Executive Director of the Minnesota Urban Debate League. Amy has been Executive Director since 2009 and holds a Master's in Public Administration from the University of Pittsburgh. She was a high school and college debater and knows the power of debate to create pathways for college and career.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you again to our students and to our First Lady, Gwen Walls. What an amazing evening. It's just been a wonderful evening of celebration, and I hope that everyone here has really felt that, particularly our folks with our school districts, our partners, our educators who are here tonight. I know it has been really hard the last few years, and I am incredibly proud and grateful as both a parent and a partner with public schools for the work that everyone has been doing. So if you can join me in thanking our educators, I would appreciate that. I also really want to thank just a number of people who put tonight together. You know, this is a huge team effort. We've had a number of folks who work extraordinarily hard, and not only our Urban Debate League students, but we have an amazing team of Urban Debate League staff and a group of just tremendously talented and dedicated board members. And I'm hoping our staff, our students, our board members will rise and join me in thanking them. And also, I want to particularly thank, we have a number of key board members who are rolling off the board this year, and they get a special round of gratitude from us. Dean Eiler at Lathrop GPM, Lene Solom of Solom Risk Partners, Steve Liss, and Judge Jeff Bryan. Can you join me in thanking all of them for the work that they have given us over a number of years? Now, I'd like to introduce June, who's the chair of our board. June Pineda-Hodel is going to share with you about how you can support our work, and she'll share her story about debate. June Pineda-Hodel is a partner at Zimmerman Reed, a Minneapolis-based firm with a national reputation in complex and class action litigation. She champions the causes of public entities when they are plaintiffs in high-stake cases. And earlier this year, June served as trial counsel for the state of Minnesota in a 3-week landmark jury trial against tobacco companies for their alleged role in the youth vaping epidemic. Committed to paying forward the invaluable experiences she gained as a high school debater, she has been a steadfast advocate of the MNUDL and currently serves as the chair of the advisory board. I am so grateful for June. Can you please welcome her?
Good evening, everyone. Let me start with some numbers. 8% better high school attendance, 39% increase in self-esteem, 40% higher likelihood of graduating high school. These are the incredible outcomes of students who participate in debate. But tonight I want to go behind the statistics and put a face to them by telling you my story. My family immigrated to this country from the Philippines when I was in 2nd grade, and I didn't speak any English. Hard to believe when I hear my Minnesota accent creeping in, but school didn't come easy for me. I remember my first day sitting in the principal's office. She held up a sheet of paper with pictures on them and asked me to identify the objects in English, and she pointed to a picture of a chicken, and I burst into tears because I didn't know the word chicken. That was my introduction to American education. Fast forward to my teenage years, it didn't get any easier. In fact, I developed a habit of cutting classes, and my teacher had to call my mom because I spent more time at the bowling alley next to the school than in the classrooms. And as a result, I had no desire to learn, and I lost confidence in my ability to do well in school. But there was a turning point. I joined my high school debate team. Not because I had a burning passion for public speaking or because I wanted to be a better student, but because Lindsay was on the team, and she was my only friend. For me, debate was a lifeline. Yes, it taught me how to analyze, organize my thoughts, use evidence to persuade, but most importantly, it gave me confidence. I was a person of color in a small town in Wisconsin. The only thing I wanted to do was blend in. But debate gave me the confidence to stand up, speak out, make my voice heard. And it gave me the confidence to strive to win. And to win, I had to put in the work. So I did. Even if it meant sneaking into the college library to use the only LexisNexis computer terminal in town. Debaters from the 90s and 80s, you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. The confidence that debate gave me bled into my academics. I went from a Filipino Ferris Bueller to someone who was eager to think critically, advocate for herself, engage with her community. And it's the reason that I eventually went to college and then ultimately law school, something that was not on my family's radar. But debate instilled in me a desire to continue learning, so I did. Without debate, I wouldn't be here before you. I stand here not because I believe in the transformative power of debate, but because I know it firsthand. That's why the Minnesota Urban Debate League is so close to my heart, and I want everyone to join me in supporting urban debate financially tonight so that we can continue to do the work that we do. And there are 3 ways that I'd like you to support us tonight, and I'll walk you through it. It's going to be easy. First way is on your tables, you will find an envelope that looks like this. If you have a check or cash, put it in there. Fill out the envelope and drop it in the bag that's on your table, and we'll collect them at the end of the night. Second way is for the tech-savvy folks out there. Find this flyer at your table. Okay, you'll see a bit.ly link at the bottom. Let's all pick up our phones, open up your browser, type it in, and it will take you to the site to make a contribution. Third way, if you want to get really fancy, the flyer has a QR code. So pick up your phone again, open your camera. Hold on. Okay. Now point it at the QR code and then tap it, and it's going to take you to the website to make a financial contribution online. So there's 3 options: the envelope, bit.ly link, QR code. With all of the challenges that our schools and our students are facing, we need your support now more than ever. The statistics I mentioned at the beginning, I know they're real. And there are countless others like me, thanks to the Urban Debate League. By supporting us tonight, you are helping students in Minnesota think critically, research effectively, advocate passionately. Thank you so much. Steve, if you can come back to the stage and announce tonight's winners.
Well, I have the honor of getting to announce tonight's winners, and wow, what an amazing evening. The Star Tribune is a proud sponsor of this program in many ways because the mission of the Urban Debate League really matches our own. And you know, one of the commitments we've made this year is to make sure that every high school student in the state of Minnesota can get a free subscription to the Star Tribune, and every high school graduating senior has the same. So if you know a high schooler in your life or are a high schooler here today, startribune.com/NIE is the place to get it. But you're not here to hear my tagline about Free Star Tribune, you're here to hear the winners. So, it was a close vote, a very close vote, but the audience voted with 56% of the vote that the negative team, Lily St. Didis and Sabrina Tao, are our winners this evening. Congratulations. And let's give one more round of applause for all teams tonight and the work that they did.
All right, this was a great evening, wasn't it? I mean, just a great evening. And so I just want to thank the students. And I really enjoyed the debate. I really enjoyed hearing about, you know, what you're thinking about doing. So thank you very much. And so thank you for coming and supporting Minnesota Urban Debate League students. And I get to say, that's the end of our 11th annual Mayor's Challenge. So I hope, in fact, I don't know. It says I hope, but I know you had a wonderful evening. Thank you.